कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste and welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for another class, part 4 of the earth element of the pancha bhutas. We are in this series for the long haul, so you have to be patient and learn little by little. So the absorption and retention is a lot more. Before we begin, let's get our minds together, put ourselves in a mindful state, and begin with 3 ohms. So we are on this in this Panchabhutas study of the Panchabhutas, the 5 elements, and slowly I'll bring in these Sanskrit terms so you get more and more acclimatized and more familiar with these Sanskrit terms. Always remember, Pancha means 5, Bhutas are elements. The 5 elements. So we are going to study the 5 elements. And in that, we have started with the earth element in the last few classes. So I strongly suggest that if this is the first class you're bumping into or you're logging into, of course, be part of it. You're always welcome. But you may not see the relevance of my talk and the context in which I'm presenting certain ideas. So I would earnestly suggest that you go back and ideally start from KM class 1. KM starts for Kaivalya Marga. So this Prithvi element, the earth element, Prithvi means earth. In Sanskrit, it's called Prithvi. So this earth element, there is a temple in South India dedicated to Lord Shiva, and this is that temple. We explored a little bit of this temple. We talked about the significance of this temple. It's a huge temple located in 40 acres property. It's an amazing piece, an amazing portal of divine energy. And it is my sincere belief that these concepts that I am sharing with you, of course, there are a lot of interpretations of my own, the way I have learned it, the way I perceive it, and the way I share it. It's not very different from what is taught, but there could be a slight change in the hue and the way it is presented. But I do believe that these concepts began in temples like these, in places like these, in portals like these, thousands of years ago, where the rishis, the sages, sat together, meditated, trying to understand what is this creation all about? Why does it get dark when the sun sets or when the sun rises? Some simple questions like that to who am I? What happens when I sleep? What happens when I'm awake? So on and so forth. So these are those wonderful temples, and this is one of the first temples that I visited in the course of seeking inspiration, seeking guidance, seeking blessings from each of these ancient Shiva temples. So in this temple, I was inspired to share a lot of ideas and thoughts. They just kept flowing, and I kept recording. So in the classes, what I'm doing is I'm taking bits and pieces. I'm just cutting it, not really editing. I'm just simply cutting it wherever and presenting it at one piece at a time. In the last class, we talked about the fingers, the 5 elements, and then we went into the panchabhutas. I want you to take a look at this particular video. And from this video, for the next couple of classes, I guess, we will get into the nitty-gritties of understanding the earth element more. Now, a small disclaimer before I put out this video. Please understand that when we discuss earth element and discuss issues with our body, our mindsets, and our understanding and our thinking processes, the food we eat, and so on and so forth, when I mention these things, when I share these ideas, it is not to find fault with anyone. Okay, no one in particular, definitely. And it's not to arrive at any judgmental values. I'm the last one to really form judgmental opinions. But nevertheless, we have to see things as they are, not judge them as good or bad, right? There's a difference there. But see black as black and white as white. So I'm going to take examples of where we are today, why we are today the way we are, and begin to understand this from the elements point of view. Okay? So please, I'm sure none of you will get offended by this, but I'm just trying to make it very clear that I am not here to offend anyone in the concepts, in the thoughts, and the ideas that I'm going to share. You may agree with them, and you're most welcome to disagree with them. But this is how I have learned it. This is how I have understood it. And I think it makes perfect sense. Because when we diagnose a problem, we have to come face to face with facts that we may not like to hear, like obesity and weight gain and all of that. We don't like to hear those words, right? Or growing old, becoming sick, or feeling lazy. Immediately, the tendency is to get onto a defense platform and say, you know what, I'm not going to get into this. This is not me. I don't like to listen to this. But because we don't listen to it doesn't mean the diagnosis goes away. So we have to be brave to look at let's diagnose the problem today in our community, perhaps in our family, in our society, in our generation at large. We need to diagnose this problem. So in this plethora of diagnosis that is available today, from a medical perspective, from a scientific perspective, from a social perspective, the problems that we face or the situations we are in, I am presenting a yogi's perspective of why things like obesity, weight gain, illnesses, laziness, and all of this, how does that apply to our life today? I am merely presenting it from that point of view. I hope that I don't offend anyone with these kind of talks about obesity and weight gain. But I think it is important that somebody has to bell the cat. And so allow me to present my perspectives on that particular issue. And we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about earth in all our aspects. How does it apply to our food? How does it apply to our thoughts? How does it apply in many, many aspects of our lives? We may not be able to cover all that in one class today, but let's see how far we get along in this class. I have a few slides done. If I finish before time, I'll stop right there. But let's see how that goes. Okay, so let's go to the slides. I want you to watch this particular video, and then we'll take it from there. The nature of Prithvi element itself, one has to understand. Prithvi is heavy. It's heavy, it's gravity oriented. Matter goes down into gravity, right? The apple fell on this guy's head. Oh gosh, I forget his name, Isaac Newton. And then he discovered gravity because apple falls down, matter falls down. So when where do you get weight? Today we talk of obesity problem, and we'll discuss that for a minute because I want to use that in your meditation today. Think about what is obesity and why is it such a big problem? How would a yogi look at obesity today? Traditional yoga look at obesity. So here is how it is. The weight gain happens in the hips and below. Your buttocks become big because buttocks is solid flesh. They are the ones who become big. The hip becomes big, and the weight becomes more and more in that section. And then, of course, you add on weight in other parts of the body. But predominantly, the earth becomes heavy, and as it becomes heavy, you become slower and slower, and slowly the earth drags you back into itself. So as we age, we tend to slow down. Earth element is associated with things that are slow, things that are quote unquote lethargic, things that bind you down, that hold you back. Now, these are not things that are negative, this is what it is, right? So, in a physical body, as you're lazy to get up, as you're slow to move, know that the earth element is becoming more in your body, and therefore it is slowing you down. At the same time, when you are grounded in discipline and when you're stuck to a routine, that is also the good side of the earth element. Once I conquer the earth element, I'm able to bring discipline into my life. So discipline is inherent in the earth element itself, because discipline is also grounding. Anything that grounds you is earth element. So when we are grounded into every day I need to do my sun salutations, or every day I need to sit and meditate 5 minutes on these truths. So these are grounding practices. So when I bring these and I'm grounded in my practice, then I am able to bring out the earth element back up. Otherwise, uncontrolled, the earth element is going to say, oh, today my spirit says I want to just lie down and meditate, or I want to just slow down and take it easy. And we think it's all spiritual, but the earth element is actually pulling you back. Think about it. I'm not saying every time, but laziness comes in many forms. One of the greatest obstacles is inconsistency brought about by laziness, as Patanjali talks about. So, understand Prithvi element as something heavy. So this is how it relates to us on our everyday life. And this is how we need to understand the concept of Prithvi and the element. So let's now explore how to engage with this Prithvi element in our everyday life, how to engage with it when we eat, how do we engage with it when we smell, and so on and so forth. All right. So that's why I had a long disclaimer in the beginning. What did we talk about here? And I'm going to come to it in a bit. We'll analyze it point by point. But think of it this way, that Prithvi, the element Prithvi, is gravity oriented. Okay? It's gravity oriented. Because matter comes down. Matter is heavy. Matter is solid. So anything that is Prithvi oriented will come down and hold you back. Now, like I said again, it's not necessarily negative. So hold that thought. Just understand Prithvi equals gravity. Earth and gravity go together. Okay? Keeping that in mind, let's explore this again, one by one, little by little. So this is one thing we don't like to believe. We don't like to see. In fact, this picture sounds, oh my God, why was this picture? But we have to face it, that so many of us as a community today in the society, this has become a big problem. Okay, we're going to understand this more, and it is not just because of food. Please, food, of course, is a big. Let me put it this way: if I want to put numbers to it, I would say 50% of this problem with this person in this slide is, and by the way, these are not individuals I know. These are all images I purchased online, so it's not to hurt anyone there. They sold these images. They sell these images for a particular purpose. So it is all purchased and it's copyright free. So I didn't pick up somebody who might sue me tomorrow. So don't worry about that. But the idea here, anyway, coming back to the point here, is if I were to put numbers to this person's problem, I would say 50% is perhaps the food that he is eating. 20% would be the exercise part of it, or the lack of exercise thereof. What about the next 30%? It's a very important part. We miss that. And so our efforts are, I would say food is even 40%, not even 50%. 40% food, 20% exercise, and then another chunk of 40% is an important part of why still we still seem to have weight gain or laziness or slowing down for many other reasons. But in this particular case, think of earth in the body. Okay, I'm not going to solve obesity problem. I'm asking you to analyze it from the element point of view now. Okay, heaviness in body means excess of earth element. Excess of earth element. Okay, keep that in mind. Because why? Heaviness slows you down. Heaviness in the weight, in the hip region, in the buttocks region. In this particular case, there is a bulging of the stomach as well. So there is also excess of water element in this particular picture. I couldn't get only the buttocks. The pictures were not great. It was too graphic. So you understand where I'm coming from. So I didn't want to put that. But the idea here is both stomach and the buttocks region, when they grow larger than what you would like to, and I would like to in our bodies, it just means that the earth element is gaining more and more predominance. Keep that in mind. Okay, don't try to solve the problem. Just first let's diagnose the problem, understand the problem, and then we'll begin to understand how in a lifestyle we will try and correct it. Okay, so hold that thought. Then earth in body is what? The other thing I said was slowness. So when we age, we become slow. So when we become slow, when we age, what is happening? The earth is slowly getting more and more predominant. This is a normal course of life, right? So we want to, what we talk about is we say we want to age gracefully, correct? So that's absolutely possible. We cannot stay young forever. The body is everything. It's an inhalation, exhalation, right? You inhale yourself into existence, you exhale yourself out of existence. So that process of exhaling, and it will come. The end has to near, and we have to accept it gracefully. But it could be done gracefully, right? So understand at this point that slowness, aging, means the earth is slowly gaining predominance. Okay. Then the third one in the body, earth element in the body, is lethargy. This gorilla here just feels like lazing in the sun. I couldn't get any human being doing that. Not a picture that I could share. But I saw this gorilla's picture and I fell in love with him. So anyway, so here he is he's like, oh, I don't want to get up from bed. I just want to relax. I want to chill today. You see, all of this once in a while is okay. But when it becomes more and more and more, we tend to become lethargic in our approach. Then no, just be aware at this point, like I said, that the earth element in the body is beginning to act up. That's all it is. Okay. So we are diagnosing and understanding where does lethargy come from. So it is not only a mental thing. Mental thing is reflecting what? The earth element, right? Laziness is a mental concept. You are lazy to get up. So that's in the mind. So we say control the mind, get up, and we make up our mind and shoot and jump off the bed 2 days. The third day we're going back, right? So we have to understand where is this happening? Why is my mind beginning to reflect laziness? Why is it indulging in laziness? Why? Perhaps the earth element somewhere in my consciousness, in my body, is increasing. Okay? Think about that. Hold that thought again. Now comes, so that is when we talk of aging, we talk of weight gain, we talk of lethargy, just to give an idea of earth element slowing us down. Earth, matter, heaviness. So keep that in mind. But that's all that is not, they may not sound very positive at this point. But so I want to give you another perspective here. What if I'm able to control earth element? What does that mean? How does that look in my life? Then I'm able to bring discipline into my life. I'm in charge of my routines. I am not talking of habits. I am talking of discipline. Okay? Habits is a whole different thing. It's more related to water element, addictions and habits. I'm talking of discipline here. Just because you do something out of habit doesn't mean you got the earth element under control. Routine here, regularity here comes out of a conscious discipline set out. So you need to control the matter. My dear friends, brothers, sisters, the lesson from the Bhagavad Gita, I want to pause here for a second. It's very important to understand. You know what? Let me hold that thought. Let me go back to this. Let me finish this thought here and then come back to that. And then the last one here is self-discipline. It is in through spiritual practices, you're able to bring that element to a large extent. It begins to reflect, it begins to come under control when I'm able to meditate through meditation, regular meditation, through regular yoga practices or any spiritual practices. I just found these pictures more relevant. Japa and all of this become more and more, brings the earth, slowly drags it up. That's why it's difficult, right? It's difficult for us to meditate. Why do we get diverted? Why does the energy go off, just dissipate very soon? We start very well, right? Om. First Om is fantastic. Second Om, great. Third Om, great. By the time we come to the fifth, sixth, seventh, you're thinking, oh, okay, I need to focus. And then slowly, the energy gets dissipated. Not all of us. I am just talking in general. If we start with japam, the first few I'm very mindful, very conscious, and then slowly. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? It is because the earth element again begins to drag you down. So it's like you throw up something and then slowly it settles down again. So the mind goes back down. The mind consciousness tries to rise up, and then slowly once again it gets pulled back into the Mooladhara. And every time it comes up again, it goes down. Okay. Now I might be leaning towards unconsciously or subconsciously. I'm trying to be mindful. Sorry, there's two of me, as you don't want to see two of me. I might be subconsciously or unconsciously leaning towards that earth is somehow binding you or keeping you from progress. So I want to be mindful that that is not the intention. We have to be aware that to a large extent it slows us down, but there is a good side. When we learn to control the earth element, we are able to bring in discipline into our lives. We are able to bring spiritual practices into our life on a regular basis. And when we do that, there is an element there from, oh, but why am I not able to do it? How am I going to do it? So there's an element of force. There is an element of control. The word control, people don't like to hear self-control in this day of, I want to be free. I don't want to be all this idea of control. So these are words I'm using carefully and mindfully because I don't know of any other word at this point. The Gita has a very powerful symbolism. The Bhagavad Gita, the picture of Krishna and Arjuna. I wish I had that in this presentation. I didn't think of it right now. It just comes to my mind. But picture in your mind, okay, that there is the teacher and the student, and the teacher is holding the reins of the horses. How many horses? 5 horses. He is holding the reins of the horses. So in other words, the self in you has to control these 5 horses. What are these 5 horses? The 5 senses. What are the 5 senses? They are expressions of the 5 elements, right? The sense of smell is earth. The sense of sight is fire. The sense of taste is water. The sense of touch is air. The sense of hearing and sound is ether, space. So Krishna controls the horses. And because he is controlling the horses, he is leading Arjuna in the battlefield. So the higher self in us has to take control of the horses. If we say, oh, poor horse, they want to be free, I don't believe in the self-control, it's okay, then what happens? Each horse pulls us in different direction and the chariot goes nowhere. This might sound very outdated and old-fashioned talk. And I am not talking religion here at all. I'm not talking morality here at all. That's a whole different ballgame. We'll leave that. All of us know what is good and what is bad. And that depends on our culture, upbringing, civilization, religious beliefs, and so on, right? So we'll leave that aside. I am merely talking of a time-tested method, or how do you go through this battlefield of life knowing when to do, what to do with clarity of vision. If Each of these horses are going to pull in different directions. So it is from that point of view, you need the word control comes. So when I say control, I am thinking in my mind how Krishna pulls all the 5 horses and holds it. He holds the reins in his hand. So the Guru within us, the Dakshinamurti within us, the higher self within us, the bigger I within me begins to control. That is, in that context, I'm using the word control. Okay? And so that practice of bringing this especially the earth element, because it is heavy, to bring it back up because it's dragging you down, to reverse that flow upwards is not easy. It's not easy. So it's not something you would do for 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months or 1 or 2 years and say, oh, but I've been trying, but what happened? I'm still having this, I'm still not able to. It doesn't work like that. Put that thing in motion, get a lifestyle in motion, and then begin to slowly allow that transformation. The reversal will take time for the earth element to become lighter. That is why we are approaching this from so many quarters. This is how Baba trained me. I can speak for myself, and I know hundreds of others, where in the ashram he said, sing, open your heart. So in emotions rise, it pulls the earth from down. You're not dragged into laziness, you're just suddenly lifted up. So through bhajans, through kirtans, through go out and serve, when you go out and serve people, when you're thinking of what next to do, what this and that, it shakes you out of your laziness, out of your comfort zone, and suddenly you are constantly alive, active, doing something or the other, right? Either writing a blog, or I'm not talking about just going out physically and serving. That's also good if you go into a soup kitchen or a food bank and offering your time and services. That's awesome. But I'm also talking about applying your mind, everything for creativity, thinking what else, what else, what else, what else, what else, right? So that awakens. So it keeps the earth element in check. Otherwise, what happens? We go into a la la land. It begins to slowly drift us back. All right, let's go back to the slides and see what is in store. Let us look at the next video and see what more thoughts that we can develop on this. Prithvi, I keep saying Prithvi because that's a Sanskrit word. Prithvi, it's the earth element, is there in food, is there in the sense of smell, is there in the sounds that we hear, is there in the colors that we see. Everything has all these 5 elements, and one has to constantly observe, am I indulging more in the Prithvi element? The reason why I'm saying this is because one has to understand today, if obesity is a problem, if you have a weight loss problem, and if you look at yourself without clothes in front of the mirror and you feel your Prithvi is way too much, then this is how you can take a holistic approach. This is what yoga means by holistic approach. Please understand that. Just stretching alone and doing sun salutations is not going to help you. Prithvi is predominant in our consciousness. It's a matter of fact today. If you go to a mall, there is either shops for clothes, that is body oriented. There is places to eat, food oriented. It's either the way you dress and what you eat and how you look. These are the things that really occupy our consciousness today. As a community, as friends, as groups, as society as a whole, if I want to buy something, it's ads with some figure that is some kind of a Prithvi element oriented, where there is physicality in the advertisements. If you see, I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying what it is. And therefore, when there is so much of physicality, I would like to use the word obsession with physicality. We are obsessed with physicality. And therefore, getting well or being healthy and all of this, longevity and all of this, I want tasty foods, I want to dress well, I want to drive in good cars, good homes. Everything is physical. So when my desires, when my consciousness, when my aim in life itself is just to fill myself with Prithvi, guess what is going to happen? Your body begins to reflect that Prithvi element. And therefore, there is an imbalance. There is too much of Prithvi in our consciousness, and therefore obesity is all around us. Think about that. So now, I have presented here a very different idea. An idea you perhaps would not hear too often when we talk of Prithvi in our consciousness, right? Prithvi in our consciousness. I use the example of going to the mall. Look around you and examine your life from morning to evening, and then you will know the answer whether Prithvi is predominant or not. So, I have made some slides that summarize what I spoke. So, instead of let me go with these points. So, the first an important thing here is a holistic approach to harmonizing the Prithvi element in us. So, please understand that when we talk of weight gain, for example, as a direct reflection, because our body begins to reflect the elements. The body begins to reflect our consciousness. If our consciousness is predominantly Prithvi, the body begins to reflect that. Period. This is my, I can't shake this belief off my core. Okay? You're welcome to disagree with it. But this is, for me, it's so clear. It could be possible because of my training in yoga, but I believe the body is a reflection of the fragments of the mind. The mind itself is a reflection of the spirit and the consciousness. So, where the consciousness is predominantly preoccupied with which element, not one day, 1 week, 1 year, but just as a matter of habit. If it's too preoccupied, the body begins to reflect that. So not just, it doesn't mean fat people have too much Prithvi in it. It could. It doesn't mean thin people don't have any Prithvi. No, that's also wrong. They could have laziness. They could have other problems of Prithvi. So Prithvi is not just about being fat or being overweight. Please don't mistake that. We'll try and understand this a little more as we go along. But the holistic approach to harmonizing Prithvi is therefore not just about food and exercise. You have to look into the consciousness inside where the root cause lies, which is making you think, speak, and act in a particular direction. And therefore, Prithvi slowly begins to become more and more predominant. I use the word obsession mindfully in that temple, and I don't regret that. To a large extent, we are obsessed with physicality. A particular thing has to be in a particular color. They all have to. I'm not saying I'm not in it, right? I'm part of it, and some of them are harmless, I would think. But then the fact that I am too attached to the way things should look could mean that I am engaging in a lot of Prithvi. So what am I doing to balance that? Looks are so very important in today's society. So very important. Again, not bad. But are we obsessed with the way we look? Are we obsessed with the way we dress? Is it an obsession? Is it how much does it occupy your mind? As students in spirituality, I am addressing not regular people, right? I'm addressing you who are on the path of Kaivalya. In the path to Kaivalya and oneness, we want to break through conditioned mindsets. So that is why I am challenging you to think, to challenge yourself. I challenge myself constantly. Am I too preoccupied with it? I should look good. Okay, I am clean. I look pretty decent, and that's it. Am I ready to move on, or am I waiting and I'm looking at every little single gray hair on my head, or I don't have that issue. But am I looking at every wrinkle on my face or every little dot, and I'm worried? How do I conceal it? What do I do? How do I look? How do I look? So is it too much in this thing? So then we look at personality, we look at health, we look at longevity. We are obsessed with this today. And we want to fix everything at the level of the body, at the level of the Prithvi. And we have not been really very successful at this. Medical science has not been very successful with that because they are focused on fixing body issues with body. It doesn't work like that. Now they are bringing mind into the picture. They call it mind-body medicine. But there is a lot more than mind-body approach. There is a consciousness approach. There is a spiritual approach to this whole thing. Hold that in mind, because when I am obsessed in my constantly either thinking of food or thinking of dress or thinking of something or the other which is physical in nature, then I am becoming very, very Prithvi oriented in my thoughts. Okay. And then comes predominance of Prithvi. Is the Prithvi element therefore predominant in the consciousness? Is the Prithvi element obsession? Of course, the spelling is not right here. Obsession, I put, sorry for that. Anyway, predominance of Prithvi. So this is what we were talking about. Ask yourself this question: am I predominantly Prithvi in the way I think? Okay, and we'll understand this more. How more? What else happens through the senses? Each of the senses, how Prithvi affects us, and how we indulge in Prithvi. Even though I say the sense of sight is only fire, it's not just fire, right? We already established in the Sankhya that none of these are watertight compartments. This Prithvi element and water element, these are not watertight compartments. They are all completely enmeshed into each other. That is the beauty of this creation, right? The harmony and the balance is what brings all of this even more beautiful. Brings in health and abundance, and all of that comes in when these elements come into harmony. That is what we are trying to achieve here. Okay, so none of these, don't understand this, I'm going to attack only Prithvi and not a water element. So be patient. Right now we're going to study this whole series. Once you understand all the 5 elements, then your entire approach to your life will be very, very, very different. Your approach to sadhana will be very different. When I say sadhana, I mean spiritual practices will be very different. The way you look at yourself will be very different. Let's take a look at this video and take it from there. How do, therefore, you and I bring this Prithvi back to balance? I'm not saying get rid of Prithvi element. We can't. We need matter. That's an important aspect of the 5 elements. How do I bring it back into balance? How do I bring the Prithvi from being so much, bring it back to balance with the other elements? That is what the spiritual path is all about. That is what the yoga path is all about. Ultimately bringing balance in these 5 elements. Believe me, my friends, if you are able to understand this secret, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om, Namah Shivaya, the 5 chakras and the Om, this is what it is. Health is just given to you. That comes incidentally. Don't worry about health. Don't worry about wealth. All of that will come. You'll be soaked in the abundance of these 5 elements, because all of that will be in balance in your life in every aspect of your consciousness. Prithvi. Food. How does Prithvi come in the form of food? Think of the vegetables that you eat. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Turnips, potatoes. Potatoes are predominantly Prithvi. So guess what happens if you eat a lot of potatoes, potato chips, potato wafers, potato. In India you have aloo parathas. If you have too much of aloo, what happens? You begin to look like an aloo, because there is so much of Prithvi, you begin to put on weight. Modern medicine would say too much of carbs, too much of starch, and so on and so forth. They are right. But then the traditional yogi would look at it and say that is too much Prithvi in your food. Reduce Prithvi or eliminate it for the time being. So potatoes bring in a lot of Prithvi. Hard vegetables, root vegetables bring in a lot of Prithvi. Yam brings a lot of Prithvi. Sweet potato has a lot of Prithvi. There are other vegetables, and almost all the vegetables and fruits have Prithvi because there is matter, but then they're always in combination. So juicy fruits are Prithvi with water. Hot pepper and hot chili pepper and all have Prithvi, earth element with fire. Turmeric has Prithvi with air, and that's why it's very good for any kind of allergies. So that's how you have a Prithvi in other combinations. But there are some vegetables which are predominantly Prithvi. In fruits you have bananas, you have mangoes which are Prithvi with water because they are juicy in nature. So whenever there is an overdose of Prithvi and water, because both of them flow with gravity, you tend to put on weight, you tend to get diseases of the lower extremities. Alright, so here again we explored a little more practical part of understanding this Prithvi through food. But before that, I talked about something very interesting. One of the beautiful ways of understanding this is the whole. Why am I getting into this? First of all, of course, to understand the oneness and expansion of consciousness. But how will that even happen? The expansion of consciousness and the mind to be able to reflect that expansion, to experience that expansion, the mind has to be in such an optimum state. And for the mind to be in that optimum state, all the five elements has to come back into a state of balance. Harmony, I would say. Harmony. When I say balance, you might say five elements, so 100% each should have 20%. So 5 into 20 is 100. It doesn't work that way. Um, you have five fingers, and I'm going to put that together here. So you have five fingers representing, each one representing an element. You notice that these are not five equal fingers. They don't look the same, they don't behave the same, and their purposes are not the same. Yet they work in harmony to help you achieve a task. Right? Even one of them is missing, you will find it difficult to complete a task. So the fingers give you an idea of the importance of these elements in your body. And so when I talk about harmony, I am not talking of eliminating a Prithvi element. I'm not talking of making it four fingers. I'm talking of bringing it back to the level of the little finger. It could have the importance of a thumb at this point in our consciousness. How do I bring it back to its little finger? Right? Think about that. Okay? And we're going to understand this a little more in detail. No element is good or bad. Prithvi definitely is not a bad element. So don't understand that. We tend to now think of it that way, and I might be leaning towards talking like that only because of our predominantly as a society today, as a generation today, in today's world, we are too physical. Too much of Prithvi is everywhere around us. And that is why I'm trying to take the pendulum to swing to the other extreme, just so eventually it will come into a state of balance. So understand why I am saying that we have to control our food and all of that is because there is too much of Prithvi in where we are today. I talked about these Namah Shivaya. So I just put it in there. It just happened in the temple, and that's how these thoughts came to me. And the beauty of this powerful mantra is opens a door that through mantras, along with food, along with spiritual practices, along with meditation, I can practice the Panchakshari mantra like Namah Shivaya and bring all the five elements back into balance. That is the power of these mantras. This Namah Shivaya, Om is of course the sixth. Om is here, represents the sixth chakra. But the five elements here, the earth, water, fire, don't confuse this with the Bijakshara mantras. Okay? These are not Bijakshara mantras. The Namah Shivaya, the energy of Shiva, the five faces of Shiva, the five mantras, the five alphabets or letters in Shiva. Namah Shivaya, Panchakshari, it is called Pancha, means five. We know that by now. Pancha bhutas, Pancha Indriyas, and so on. So Pancha is five. Akshara means five letters. So Panchakshari, it is called. Pancha and Akshara becomes Panchakshari. And becomes A. So Panchakshari. Panchakshari mantra. 5. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Now, could chanting this bring balance and harmony? Of course. Of course. That is why this mantra is given to us. Om Narayanaya. All the 6 chakras. Namah Shivaya is Panchakshari. Om Namo Narayana, we'll explore it. When we talk about mantra yogas, we'll take aspects of each of this. I won't confuse that. So, Namah Shivaya is a powerful Panchakshari mantra which will help balancing all the 5 elements. That's why it's called a Panchakshari mantra. Okay? There are other Panchakshari mantras, there are Ashtakshari mantras like Om Namo Narayana and all. So that's why I said, I don't want to confuse that. It just slipped out of my mouth. Ignore, forget I said that. Let's focus on Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. The there is an energy of this mantra that this particular mantra was dug out from the heart of Rudram, an ancient, a very powerful chant for healing. What are we healing? We are healing these imbalances of these five elements. That is what this healing is all about. Okay, healing these five elements in the universe outside, plus in our bodies, which begin to reflect. So all healing, all illnesses are healed when all these five elements slowly come back into balance. When I focus my lifestyle in bringing harmony and balance back into these five elements in my consciousness, then my body begins to reflect that. That's why I said that health is given to you. Then health is given to you. Wealth and abundance is given to us. We may not have excess money in the bank. That's not really abundance. I don't think that is abundance. It's like having a big well full of water, but that well can become stale. I would rather have the river flowing. As and when you need, the water is always available. That is abundance, right? And an eternally flowing river like the Ganges, which has been flowing for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, so old that it finds its mention in the Vedas. So, is Ganges reminds you of abundance? Yes. Why? Because it's consistently flowing, constantly. Fresh water at any point you want, right? You could have an ocean of water, but it's all salt water, you won't be able to drink. Abundance is when there is energy flowing. So when I talk of abundance, don't think of a big account in the bank balance and say, why am I not having a big bank balance? That's not the point. The point is, whenever you want to tap into this resource in the universe, open your door and the universe provides what you need at that point. It's like Akshaya Patra. There is a story of Akshaya Patra. Akshaya means infinite, unending, eternal, and a vessel that is able to provide. The vessel is small. So does it have at any point it will be empty, but whatever you want and you put your hand in, it comes out. What does that mean? It means that the universe is waiting to serve us. But what we sit back and say is, wait, I need to have this much. I need to have this much available with me. Then only I can take my first step forward. And in that context, what happens? I bring in disharmony in all these elements. So when I bring these elements back into harmony, the universe begins to operate. You will understand this as you begin to make adjustments in your lifestyle. My dear friends, all of these lessons that I'm talking is for you to actually bring it into effect in your life, little bit at a time, one small step at a time. Because if we don't nididhyasana, like I said, right, shravana manana nididhyasana, you listen, you contemplate, and then you have to assimilate it, somehow bring into practice. Because once you start doing it, then you begin to tap into these universal energy resources. Otherwise, simply listening and first say, let me all be clear before I even make changes in my life. I don't know if that works. It doesn't work. Baba didn't train us that way. He in the ashram, we were taught discipline first. And then living a disciplined lifestyle, I began to understand, oh my God, this is amazing. How much it has helped me. Not being given the opportunity to get wayward and all of that. So we were able to form deep roots in the ground, as it were, and able to grow up. So it is in that context I'm presenting. We will explore the power and the energy of these mantras later, but along with your overall lifestyle, if you bring a mantra like Namah Shivaya, then the five elements will come back into harmony. Okay? When we explore the sound element, I will also touch upon why is it that when you chant this 1,000 times a day or 100 times a day, it may not make any difference, or it might make a small difference, not as much as you would want to. And you would say, I am been chanting Om Namah Shivaya 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day for the last 6 months, 6 years, 10 years. Why is it nothing happened to me? I've been chanting Rudram for the last 6 years, non-stop, every Sunday, every Monday, or every Thursday, or every day. And why is it that I'm not healed? We will explore that. So there is a reason for that as well. Okay? But right now, understand that yes, these are shortcuts given to us, along with a whole lifestyle change, and slowly thinking about all of this, we bring in these spiritual practices like meditation, yoga, and all of that, and mantra, and especially Namah Shivaya is directly one mantra that helps bring the five elements back into balance. Because you're calling upon the universal consciousness in this, the Shiva energy that creates all of this, right? Right from Purusha, all of this has come. So you are calling upon that energy, and in that energy, the Prakriti in you starts going back towards Shiva. In other words, she's going back to that state of equanimity, equipoise, if you will. So that is how she begins to balance in us. So Namah Shivaya is definitely a very powerful mantra. Prithvi in vegetables and fruits. Let's explore that in today's class and end the class. So, Prithvi in vegetables and fruits. I did mention a few, and I wanted to bring that more as pictures so it stays in your mind a little more clearer. So, we talk of potatoes, which are predominantly Prithvi. Like I said, none of these are 100% Prithvi, right? There's element of a little bit of water here and there, and so on. So that's why I said mostly Prithvi, predominantly Prithvi. So when you're talking of food, examine this. Okay, yam. We call that karangas in Tamil. Chepak karanga, chakravalli karanga, and all of that. Then you have sweet potatoes. You have turnips, mushrooms are also earth. So not all of these necessarily cause weight, right? Mushroom is good protein, so it not mushrooms don't cause weight. So don't think that's why I threw it mushroom in there. So not necessarily all Prithvi things are bad or something. No, I am just making you aware. The idea here is to make us aware that vegetables are directly linked to elements. They represent elements. Excuse me. They represent elements, and if in my body is beginning to reflect a lot of Prithvi, if my mind is beginning to reflect a lot of Prithvi in the form of laziness, in the form of inability to think clearly, in the form of dullness in my thought, in the form of lack of intelligence, all of that is Prithvi, then I need to approach this problem holistically, right? That's why I'm throwing these in, because food is something, this Annamaya Sharira, this kosha, this sheath, has to be sustained by food. By what kind of food? So you have to make those choices. And just this idea here is just to educate ourselves. Prithvi in vegetables. Then comes Prithvi in fruits. So you have bananas. You don't necessarily juice bananas. You can add milk and make it a milkshake, banana milkshake, and so on. But banana by itself is predominantly Prithvi. Then there is this wonderful fruit. We call it kala jamun in India. And I think kala jamun is same as nagaparam in Tamil. And black plum, as it is called. You don't get this in the US, in this part of the world. But that is predominantly Prithvi, bher as they would call it. So these were the wild berries that Rama and the ascetics and saints and sages ate in those days when they would do tapas, because that will provide them energy and nutrients to the body. Coconut, apart from the coconut water, coconut by itself is Prithvi. That coconut can come under vegetable as well, but I just threw it in here. Guavas is another example. When we cut raw guavas, we put some mirchi powder in it and eat it sometimes. So in India especially, that's a very popular snack. Guava is predominantly Prithvi. Apples are predominantly Prithvi. Like I said, they all have some juice, but predominantly, if you think of, it's not fleshy, it is hard, right? They're all hard. I didn't put mango here. Mango comes under more of a Prithvi with water. This is predominantly Prithvi, all these pears. So you can look at a fruit and ask yourself, is it more Prithvi or more Prithvi and water? So if I have in my body excess of Prithvi and water, Prithvi, then I need to be aware of what kind of food choices I need to make. This is to give you an idea. Now, before we meet in the next class, I want to give you some homework. We know the five elements: Prithvi, water, fire, air, and space. So I want you to think of, from the point of view of food, we discussed a few of mostly Prithvi fruits, mostly Prithvi vegetables. Then, what are the vegetables and fruits that could be Prithvi and water mixed? To give you an example, watermelon. What is watermelon? It's huge, it's big, it's heavy, right? So what is that? It has a Prithvi component. But is it completely Prithvi? Can I put it in this category? No, because watermelon is, once you open it, is you touch it, it becomes water. So there is so much of water content in that. So that is a Prithvi and water combination in watermelon. That's why it's called watermelon, because there's water content in that. So for your homework, think about vegetables and fruits that have Prithvi and water. Think of vegetables and fruits that have Prithvi and air, Prithvi and fire in them. I gave you an example of peppers. So think of what vegetables, what fruits can I think of it with Prithvi and fire. A little hint: raw mangoes, anything that's spicy, tangy. Okay, think about that. Vegetables and fruits. What about Prithvi and air? What has a lot of prana, air in it? What vegetables you feel when you look at it? There's a lot of energy of the sun in it. Okay, think about that. Prana, air in it. Prithvi and air. All of these, because they are the physical products, you have Prithvi in them. But there is another element along with Prithvi. So this exercise will help you think that, and also understand that these elements don't exist in isolation. Okay, and what are those that help with Prithvi and sound in you? What helps you expand your consciousness? Think about that. um, Fruits and vegetables, just do it as a homework. And you yourself will get an idea when you go shopping, and you look into your shopping cart at the end of the, when you're billing, and you see how much of each of the elements that I have. And then in your plate on the dinner table, when you feed your children, when you feed yourself, you begin to understand how much of Prithvi, how much of air, how much of water, how much of space, how much of all of this is going into my body. Begin to mindfully begin to live like that. And I'm not see, none of this are lacking any taste here, right? You can make very tasty food with all of this. But when do we need to hold back? When I use the word control in the beginning, when do we need to hold back is when we want to find that, when we feel there is excess of a particular element, we say, you know what, for the time being, I'm going to hold back a little bit. For example, next 6 months to 8 months, I'm not going to touch potatoes. Potatoes won't be in our kitchen. Okay, I'll just make this for kids, because they'll need a lot of starch and carbs. They're growing children, right? Unless they have an obesity problem. So I'm going to keep that a little low key, very very low key. And therefore you will say that I'm going to balance that with something else. You can make tasty food with something else. So think about it from the food aspect. Okay, we'll explore more about this, Prithvi. There is good news at the end of it all. So don't get bogged down, don't get worried, don't get discouraged by, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I have to change my whole life now and all of that. Don't worry, it'll all fall in place. The spiritual path is for warriors. It is for those of us who like to look into the mirror and say, give me the truth, give me the facts, let me face it. If I have made mistakes in my life, if I have made wrong choices in my life, if this my body is reflecting my consciousness is in consciousness in a way I don't like it, then how do I retrace my steps? Remember, the body is a reflection of what is going on inside. So when you go within, and that's where we are going at this, when you go to the root cause and begin to make adjustments, the body begins to reflect that change. It is the truth. The body is a reflection. The body is not the cause, the body is the effect. The cause lies deep within. And this whole path here is to understand that cause, to analyze, and to rectify that cause. As always, thank you so much for your patience. I think I'm done with the slides. Let me see. Yes, thank you so much for your patience. I hope I'm able to convey the importance of understanding these elements to you all. Feel free to text me. I have the WhatsApp number on the screen. Feel free to write to me your concerns, your questions, your comments. And we will explore this more, understand this more. There is some more that I was inspired to share at the temple as I spent the whole day, and words came to me, thoughts came to me, and I shared that. I'll break that more into chunks, and we'll share more and understand how much of this Prithvi is in our lives and how we can gradually bring it back into a state of balance. So instead of holding us back, it actually anchors us and helps us to grow like a beautiful tree. Let us bring this class to an end with one Om and three Shantis. Thank you for inviting me into your homes and for giving me the honor of teaching these ancient concepts in a manner that we can relate to and we can understand. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti